Dear colleagues, so we would like to announce that the 18th International Interdisciplinary Scientific Conference, Development of the State Role in the 21st Century, is already opened. Today we have wonderful presenters from different institutions, and it's a great pleasure to host them in Šiauliai and to have them online. But before starting our presentations, we would like to invite some welcome speeches to give by very important persons coming in person to Šiauliai Academy of Vilnius University. Let me invite the first speaker, and it's a great honor for us for Šiauliai Academy of Vilnius University, Vice Minister of the Interior, Alicija Šerbaitė, to give the welcome speech.
Gerbiami konferencijos organizatoriai, dalyviai ir svečiai. Vidaus reikalų ministro vardu leiskite pasveikinti jūs visus susirinkusius čia Šiaulių akademijos erdvėse diskusijoms apie duomenų reikšmę ir poveikį valstybės valdymo sprendimams. Konferencijos pagrindinė tema yra duomenys ir jų poveikis, įrodymais grįstos politikos formavimas sumaniems ir tvariems regionams vystyti. Kviečia pažvelgti, kaip mokslas, technologijos ir duomenų analizė gali tapti tvirtų pagrindų priimant viešosios politikos sprendimus. Tai ypač svarbu šiandien, kai pasaulis susiduria su sunkiais ir sudėtingais iššūkiais, nuo instrumentalizuotos migracijos ir demokratijos stiprinimo iki skaitmenizacijos bei socialinio atsparumo didinimo. Vidaus reikalų ministerija, turėdama įvairiapusę darbotvarkę, nuo viešojo saugumo, migracijos iki vietos savivaldos, regioninės politikos ir viešo administravimo klausimų, ypač vertina patikimų ir išsamių duomenų svarbą. Šiuo metu daug dėmesio skiriame savivaldos institucijų veiklos tobulinimui, regionų plėtros stiprinimui, informacijos apie administracinės ir viešasias paslaugas valdymo gerinimui. Siekdami užtikrinti kokybišką politikos formavimą, daug dėmesio skiriame tarp instituciniam bendradarbiavimui, duomenų apdorojimui ir kaupimui skirtiems technologiniam informaciniams įrankiams. Nuoširdžiai dėkoju organizatoriams už turiningą ir aktualią konferencijos darbotvarkę. Linkiu įdomių pranešimų, įkvepiančių diskusijų ir idėjų, kurios taptų praktiniais sprendimais mūsų valstybei ir regionams. Ačiū Jums labai ir sėkmingos konferencijos šiandieną.
At the same time, we have not only the national level, but we have the local government here in the room. And it's our great pleasure and honor to invite our Deputy Mayor of Šiauliai City, Justina Švėgžda, to give a welcome speech as well.
Good morning, dear guests. Good morning, UK. I know it's only 8 o'clock in the morning over there, so you had to sacrifice some of your sleep time probably, but there is no sacrifice that would be too demanding when it comes to the city of Šiauliai, which I will just throw this statement away, is probably the greatest city on the planet. And today we are gathered to base it with evidence, right? This is one of the central themes of the conference. And I do know that it's the 18th conference in general, but for me it is the number 5. So it is a bit of an anniversary, and that is a great pleasure for me to be here. Of course, good afternoon for the guests from South Korea. I know it's almost the end of the afternoon for you guys, but I hope that you will stay connected for the entire conference. And this also illustrates greatly the significance of this conference and the reach that it has. It is great to see Nora over here, who is probably the second best known person from Nottingham. Of course, Robin Hood is number 1, but hey, number 2 is also a silver medal. And this is something I hope you hold dear. And great having you as a part of the international community over here. The city is famous for resilience, for being capable of standing up after the great turbulences of the 20th century, being able to adapt to the challenges posed by the restorations of independence, by the mass immigration, and we are back on, I would say, a chapter in our history where we can easily say that the times have never been better than they are today, and tomorrow it will be even better than it is now. So we are doing very well, and we couldn't do or couldn't have achieved it without the involvement of the academia. There is a huge honor and a huge responsibility for the Šiauliai Academy to be the only university in the northern Lithuania. So when you think about that, I think it really gives you an additional motivation to wake up earlier, to have intellectually enriching lectures, to make sure that you are willing to walk an extra mile when you need to attract new students, because it is an ongoing process that we are willing to work together in. There is no future for the city without the university, and there is no future for the university without the city. We are just really interconnected, and I hope that this will endure any challenges that are expected most likely in the future. There are never calm times, as we know, so hopefully this friendship lasts, especially when we have a backing of Ministry of Interior. It is great to have you as the guest for the conference. It gives it an additional push and, of course, an additional value for sure. So my wish is one and only: enjoy your time over here in Šiauliai. Very happy to have people both online and in person. There is a lot to see, a lot to experience over here, and of course having discussions that will last and maybe intellectually enrich all of you, both students and the lecturers. And of course I have a teeny present from the city of Šiauliai for the person who holds this event proudly and responsibly, and who calls me three months prior the conference begins. That is Vita, and she called me in June probably to inform me about the event that will take place in October. That is how it usually is. And without a dedication like this, probably you wouldn't have events like the conference we are holding right now. So congratulations on a great event. Congratulations on the strong connections that you have established with the international community around the globe. It is fair to say it by now. And make it last for as long as possible, right? Because it is something that we can barely imagine our city without. And good luck in all of your future projects. And trust me, there are some people that, I have this saying that there are people without whom the city wouldn't survive. There are people that are bigger than the city, and you are most definitely one of them. So congratulations, and congratulations to the entire staff that works enormously in order to make sure that we are the city of the sun. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the Vice Mayor, who is one of the best governmental friends of our international conferences. And it's great he mentioned already Nora, because Nora spent here in Šiauliai a lot of time. I'm not lying. And to say the truth, just because the perfect example of the local government and the openness for scholars, Nora was able to spread the message about Salutai, as we called Šiauliai in United Kingdom before Nora. And now they all know that Šiauliai Academy of Vilnius University is a unit of one of the best universities in Lithuania. So we are very happy that local government, national government are so open for us. But now let me invite one of our hearts of our university. She's not only the brain, but the heart as well. This is our Director of Regional Development Institute, Associated Professor Dr. Lina Garšvienė. Lina, please.
Hello all. Guests, participants, colleagues. I don't know what to add really, because we had nice speeches here, but I'm happy that according these conferences, discussions, all the participation, we really transform it lately, let's say, in new laws, in new theories, in proposal for projects and so on. So I hope that you will have a really good time here. So I'm really happy and proud of my Vita and colleagues here. So just have a good time. And if what, yeah, call us or meet us every time you need. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And as we have here a representative of the Research Council of Lithuania and the Network of Science and Innovation Advisors, Salomea Vanage, may I ask you for a short welcome speech as well?
Welcome everyone in Šiauliai. You're wonderful and have wonderful time. Like Vice Mayor mentioned, Šiauliai, I think, is the place that we from Vilnius usually come with a train. So with the train you go Klaipėda direction, like all the roads in Lithuania, not only go in Vilnius, but also go in the Šiauliai. And of course, I would like to say thank you for Vita. Can you bring the power? If they're saying thank you, because when we speak evidence-informed policy making, especially my project, like Vita is working, the main goal is that we are working with the people. We are trying to change thinking, and this is one of the hardest part to do it. And the Vita is making the hardest part also. She's speaking, she's raising discussion, and nowadays, especially nowadays, we have a lot of discuss and find the best discuss. To keep this discussion is the hardest part. And I must say thank you for Vita, because she's inspired for me to keep going. And I know why I'm working, because I'm working with this kind of people and also working for you guys. You also are the part, and don't forget that you are creating the system, not the system is creating for you. So be a part of the system. So I want to say thank you.
I'm a little bit confused. It seems like the conference is my own already. It's just a little bit confusing, but first of all, I would like to emphasize that this conference would be impossible without wonderful partners, without a wonderful team working for the benefits of Lithuania, academy, government, and collaboration together. So thanks to all the team members and for all guests and students who are here to learn more about evidence-informed policymaking. So applause to yourself. Dear colleagues, just before starting the conference, it's very important to emphasize that we have the person whose name is in the title of the conference. It's Professor Dr. Jonas Pranas Aleksa. And as we don't have him already 70 years, let's watch a short movie about his life, about his contribution to the state and to the welfare of all of us. Dear colleagues, now we are moving to the presentation session. Let me invite the first key speaker, representing Joint Research Center of the European Commission, Agnieszka Gadzina-Kołodziejska, and we are going to have her presentation on evidence-informed democracy issues. So, dear Agnieszka, I will give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Vita. I hope you can hear me. Definitely you cannot see me. Nature gave me many qualities. Height is not one of them, so I'm sorry for that. Mr. Mayor, I beat you. Because me, Vita contacted actually in March to make sure that I'll come. And I must say, it wasn't easy. It took me like 13 hours yesterday, but I'm here and I'm very happy. You have a great person here. So once more, a big congrats to Vita for organizing this. Yes. I'm here today to tell you about why we're talking about the evidence-informed policymaking, why it's important for our democratic countries, how the EU looks at this, and what the EU does to support better enforcement of this kind of support to policymaking. And just very shortly, why I'm here actually, and what is my credibility in talking about those stuff. We are the scientific arm of the European Commission. Joint Research Centre is a part of the European Commission, but our mandate is different than all others. We do not lead any policies. What we do, we advise policies with scientific and technical advice, all of them. We have a commissioner above us, it's Mrs. Zakarieva. We also have the board of member states governors. A Lithuanian member governor is also part of our board of governors. What is important, we are hiring scientists. We do not hire civil servants, policymakers. Most of our staff are scientists and they actually produce science. We have research done on the sites, we have laboratories and so on and so forth. And this is one of the activities or one part of the mandate of the Joint Research Centre. The other one is actually to advise, to be a knowledge broker. And we know from experience how difficult it is. And this is also why we research how we can make it better and why it is important for our governments to use science in terms of strengthening their design of policies. So this is only just the fancy labs that we have. But now actually to the topic, why we need evidence-informed policymaking. We have here representatives of the government, we have here the representatives of the local government. You all know, ladies and gentlemen, also as a scientist, how difficult world it is now, how complex it is, how interconnected the issues are, how far they break all the bridges. Or how far they break all the borders that we have. There is no one issue now. There is no one issue for one scientist or one issue for one minister to deal with. They are so complex and interconnected that they need diverse perspective. And this is what science gives and brings. This is what evidence brings. They are also, science or evidence can give you the best picture of reality. There is no better one. There is no better picture than the facts that are presented by science. And it helps to design policies better. But more concretely, I know this is always a very difficult message to pass, especially in the scientific environment. Science is not neutral. Science is a political issue. If the choice if you use science or not is political. The choice if you believe in science or not as a politician, a minister, a president or whomever is your political choice, depending on your values and beliefs and so on and so forth. But what is very important, and those two, when we talk about the democracy and science, those two are very much interconnected. They basically thrive on the principles that reinforce each other or sustain each other. We're talking here about open inquiry, we're talking here about the skepticism, we're talking here about transparency, reasoned debates. These are all the values that democracy and science shares. Democracy needs science and science needs democracy. They both challenge dogma, challenge authoritarianism. They both are supporting progress. They are committed to progress, to betterment of the society, to make the society more just, more equitable, more knowledgeable. Now imagine being a scientist without the democracy, without the key values like freedom of expression for scientists to actually communicate their research, to communicate their results, to, in open way, debate the interpretation of what research say, to present new theories without any kind of hesitation of prosecution or censorship or whatsoever. And it's the same for democracy. Democracy to thrive, to be really flourishing, needs several factors. And one of these factors is common understanding of facts, common understanding of reality, so-called common ground that we can talk about. And you have it all on the slide. I will not read and repeat what is here. There will be another one why it's important. But the most important word here is trust. Using of evidence help to gain, regain, build, rebuild trust of the society in what we do as administration, what we do as government. And I will show you, this is not the thing that I'm just saying because I believe in it. We're talking here about evidence, and we have evidence of this. So this is a pretty old evidence, 2021 is already pretty old. But the Eurobarometer survey on science and technology clearly showed that people want more engagement of scientists in the policy-making process. It's 7 out of 10 citizens. It's a big majority. They believe in science, and they believe that science should have more play. And look at this, ladies and gentlemen. It's September 2021. What does it say to us? That this is in the middle of the COVID crisis. It's after all that happened, after all kind of also a pretty confusing situation that was happening in the COVID. When in the EU, each member states did whatever they believed it's better, that there was no one kind of approach, that there were very confusing messages sent on different levels by both scientists, politicians. Whole of the society was kind of confused, and they still believe that it's good. And they still, although all this lockdowns, should it be done or not, and masks, should it be done or not, and vaccines, should we have them or not, and so on and so forth, they still trust and believe science. And this is a newer one. This is the trust survey of the OECD that shows you very nicely a correlation. It's of course not a causality, but the correlation is clearly seen already. When they actually surveyed the OECD countries, so we also see the countries outside of the EU there. In general, society trusts more the government when the society believes that the government use evidence when designing the policies, that it's not just political kind of decision, but that it's based on something. So the more they believe that you use evidence as a policymaker, the more they actually trust you. So here we are. So it is seen also at the European level. COVID was this kind of wake-up call. It was seen at the EU level that this is a topic that the EU needs to invest, and the member states also should invest. And we had a series of political support at the EU level in the Council of the European Union. This is this most important people coming depending on the topic. These are the ministers. In this case, that was the ministers of research or science, depending on the setup in the country, debating at the COMPET. And at the end, we had the council conclusions. And this is the science side of it, the blue one. The red one is actually policymaking side of it, because it's not only the ministers of science that notice that it's needed, but actually this is also the centers of governance, as we call them. So the people that are responsible how policies are designed in the country. So it can be, depending on the country, the Chancellery, it can be the Ministry of Interior, it can be the Ministry of Public Administration, very much depending on what is other responsibility. And this is the Ghent Declaration, when they say from kind of policy making side that yes, we also see it's needed. So what was in those council conclusions? It basically underlined that yes, we need science-informed policies because they have better qualities. Yes, we need have all scientific fields contributing. Not one science is better than the others. There is always, in the scientific world, there's this kind of hesitation. Is it only STEM sciences, or maybe this is also the social sciences and humanities and whatsoever? It needs to be transdisciplinary. It needs to be interdisciplinary. One domain will give us nothing. And yes, and that's also a recognition how positive impact can research has. So, but there's also something else. There's a call that we need to do something with it. It's not only how nice it is and all of this, but there are specific actions that need to be taken by us as the European Commission, but also by the member states. And one of those action is at the very bottom there. And it's to foster the use of the TSI. TSI is a very nice name. It's called. It's one of the financial tools, basically, that the European Commission has to support public administrations in member states. It's technical support instrument. This is exactly the name. And we are lucky in the GRC that we implement those in terms of science for policy. So we had a first project of this type with 7 member states. You see the flag. You can recognize your own. We had the first coalition. We had 3 Baltic states, including Lithuania. We have Belgium, Czech Republic, Greece, and the Netherlands. And our aim was not only to see what happens, but also how we can help the country to improve the situation. What we can do to work together with the member states to advance the level of how science advice is contributing to the development of your countries. And we prepared at the end something that was called roadmap with the recommendations and reforms. And I will tell you a bit later on what is the situation in Lithuania. But first I will tell you what we've learned. But because then it would be easier for you to recognize also what's happening in Lithuania. And I can tell you straight away, ladies and gentlemen, that all the countries, also very advanced one like the Netherlands, where the system is set up for 70 years and it's based on legislation there. And the countries that are all the development or learning curve, they still share more or less the same challenges. Now the issue is how to address those challenges, giving the local context, giving the local culture, giving the local environment. So the first thing, and as I said on the very beginning, use of science is a political choice. It's not neutral and it's not technocratic. It is a political choice and it needs commitment. If there is no commitment at the senior governmental level to use science, the administration will not do it because the incentive will not be there. EIPM is also not, as we very often see, linear, yes? So there is the scientist has a report, it sends it somewhere, maybe it will end up on the policymaker desk and that's it. No, it does not work like that and it should not work like that. It's more of a circle. It's the feedback loop that it should be there, where the constant contact is needed. It needs also a system thinking. I told on the very beginning, we're facing the complex problems. We cannot solve them with the simple solutions. So evidence-informed policymaking is not happening by accident. What do I mean? The system will not self-organize. It needs support. There is a level, what can be done at the informal stage. Policymakers knowing some scientists, looking for the advice, having some kind of personal relations and whatsoever. But it needs further institutional support in order to thrive. Like I gave you an example of the Netherlands, when this is really put in the legislation, when the institutions are called in the legislation to work. And yes, you can put whatever institutions you want in place, and they will not work if there is no trust. And there is no mutual commitment between both parties to do so. So trusted relationships are as much as important. As I said, there is no one size fits all. Lithuania faces problems are the same, but the magnitude and the solutions are different than I don't know, of Germany, for example, isn't it? Lithuania is a tiny country and so on and so forth. Shared language matters. People very often do not speak the same language. They understand the same words differently. The words have different notion and bearing for them. Most countries have a good academia. Lithuania has a good academia, but what do we do with this, and what is the flow to the government? What kind of connection is there also in terms of the agenda? Is the research agenda of the country actually focused on the needs of the country? To some extent it should be. To some extent that should be somehow correlated for the country development. And very important for scientists, and this is another second very difficult message that I need to pass to scientists. When you advise a policymaker, you do not use it to lobby for more grants. Because it's clearly not a kind of, honest broker role. Then you're advocating for your case, so you don't do that. The money will come at some point. It should be the other way around. This is always the chicken and egg question here a bit. So now to Lithuania, to the important thing. So we came also with the national experts, and we kind of mapped the situation in Lithuania. And you have all the necessary building blocks to have the effective science for policy or evidence-informed policy-making ecosystem. You have the key actors, you have the institutions, and most importantly, you have already at the governmental level some acknowledgement of how important it is and some commitment to improve the situation. So you have here very few examples, and one of the best one is actually the Science and Innovation Advisor Network. This is very important. That was created some time ago, not so long ago, but not so very new either. We see that the advisors could play a very crucial role. You have also strata, you have the research council. So these are this kind of building blocks of the ecosystem that are very nicely creating in Lithuania. But it's not, of course, all good. In none of the country is. Every country has something still to improve. So there is a bit, we see those institutions being created, but there is still a bit of lack of the coordination. There should be we should maybe unify a bit the approach towards science advice. And there is still a lack of incentives, and this is very common in every member state. There's still a lack of incentives for both policymakers and the researchers to engage. So those provisions that are there are still somehow constrained. And that's very natural, also at the EU level, even in the GRC. How most of our scientists see it, they are paid to do something else than science advice. They are supposed to conduct research. Their academic career, also the academic career of researchers, normally depends on where you publish, how many citations do you have, how many students you have, maybe how many grants you bring to the university or to the institution you work. And it's the same for policymakers. A minister in the elections is not actually hold accountable, have the minister use the science in the policy making or not. It's the same for the civil servants. They have very tight deadlines. They have very often working in the crisis mode. It's very difficult without any additional support to just, on their own free will, just engage with that. So here we are. So what we advise, these are one of the few recommendations that we gave to Lithuania. What we advise is to actually strengthen the collaboration, to design jointly the research roadmaps. So to more align a bit what is the national research agenda with what could be potential policy needs. And this is also what we do at the EU level. The GRC work program, the GRC scientific work program is aligned with the main priorities. And here I'm not saying that the researchers should not be independent from policy making. There is nothing wrong in having the research that we believe that will be important in the few years. If we wouldn't do that in the GRC, we would not have the research on hydrogen, we would not have research on AI, and so on and so forth. This is this kind of alignment that I'm talking here about, not about being directed what kind of research is supposed to be done and upfront what kind of results it should have. That's not what I mean here. It's more aligning both needs of the research of the country. Strengthening the network further, that's very important from our point of view, and also developing the science for policy competences of researchers, but also of the policymakers. So it was a successful project. So now we have the cohort 2, and these are the countries of the cohort 2. It just started. We will have the kickoff meeting on the 22nd of October. Several of you will attend a day later the meeting of the community of practice. So you did good. You did good, colleagues. You also convinced those others that it's worth investing in it, and this is why they are now here. And these are, you see, well-established countries. Let me say it like this: Spain, France, Austria, Poland. These are big countries with some strength in the EU, and they want to follow your path. So congratulations to you and to the work done in Lithuania. And now I have several slides if you want to learn more what can be done. I will not talk much about them. All of them have the QR codes, so you can then check them. I will not bore you to death. What is important, we have the community of practice, of knowledge brokers for evidence-informed policy making. It's just started, it's still small. But the aim of this community is to support each other, policymakers, scientists. If you have an issue that you deal with in Lithuania, you write to the members of the community and they tell you, oh, actually, I have research in Portugal on that. Maybe that could be useful for you or whatever. So that's the end goal. If you want to train yourself, there are competence frameworks and the trainings based on the competence frameworks. So one is for the policymakers, the higher one, the lower one is for the scientists. What are the competences you need to have? Smart for policy, if you want to see where you are, this is an online survey. It will tell you what is your level in the EIPM. I can tell you already that it will be low because this is designed like that, this tool. This tool is designed to map the organization. Organization needs to have all the competences, not one single person. You're not Leonardo da Vinci. So if you are showing up already as good in one of the competences, it's already very good because this is mean that this is your specialization. And now you cannot be good in anything unless you are. And then please then write to me and I'm sure we will hire you immediately. To learn more about the trainings. And this is one slide that I would just want to stop a bit because everything I tell you here about is based on science. It's not my best educated guess or my colleagues because we have nothing better to do in Brussels and we drink just coffee one time or the other. So these are the studies that we conduct on understanding how the policymaking processes look like, how you take the decisions from the cognitive, from psychological, from behavioral point of view. What is the influence of the modern technologies, big platforms, for example, like X, like TikTok, like all of those, on your decision making, how they actually design the algorithms to enhance polarization, for example, to enhance misinformation and so on and so forth. What kind of role values and identities play? I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it's called my side bias. You all think that you're rational, intelligent here. And if I would present you with the fact that it goes against your beliefs, like core beliefs that you have, you will attack the fact no matter how intelligent you are. Also, how to, in the trustworthy way, communicate as a policymaker with public. Not in the way that the populists do, not in the manipulative way, but in the way that is actually effective, but still ethical. And if you bought in your life, here you are. One of those links is also the link to the Lithuanian report from the project and many others. Thank you very much.
Hello to everybody. It's really nice to be here to participate. And I think it is really more interesting to hear what everybody else has to say. And so from my perspective, it's mostly about trying to show you from our experience in the UK, in particular myself, I'm representing the Science and Technology Network from the UK in the Baltic states. So I'm based in Estonia, but I work in all three Baltic countries, and I do go to Lithuania as often as I can. Sadly, not this time. But in general, really trying to address the question of the plenary itself, on how to use science in government and evidence for decision making and as a tool for statecraft in general. I will reflect more on the practical side of our experience and the evolving strategy that we have been using in science as a foundation for both domestic policy in the UK, but also as an instrument for international engagement, which is my main focus. And we call it science diplomacy, of course, and around this term there are different definitions. It has been very often described through two dimensions or two sides. One is science for diplomacy, as in scientific collaboration being used as a bridge for trust and dialogue. And the other side would be diplomacy for science, which is utilizing diplomatic tools to enable either research partnerships, standard alignments, sometimes even shared infrastructure and the like. So these are basically the principles that are guiding our daily work at the Science and Technology Network, which we call STN or STIN. And I'll introduce you shortly on what it is and how the network works, but also trying to share how our ideas or these ideas about science and diplomacy really translate into practice, and in particular in my focus area, which is the Baltics, but also Northern Europe. So the main goal for us is using science-informed engagement to support smart and sustainable development. And beyond science diplomacy, and as Vita and Salomea definitely know, because we were in the UK exploring this earlier this year, the UK government incorporates or integrates science at really multiple layers. So from the Government Office for Science, we have the chief scientific advisors in all the departments and ministries. We have specialist advisory bodies. We have different advisory offices and really a lot of ad hoc groups as well when the time comes. And one of all of those groups is the Science and Technology Network, which sits under the FCDO, so the Foreign Office, basically, but also with the DISIT, which is the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology within the UK. So it's really almost a double ministry work group. So the STN, or the Science and Technology Network, is a team that is based really across, I would say, worldwide. We are based in either British embassies or high commissions in different countries, and we are connecting research, academia, but also technology and innovation together with policy across all these countries and with the UK. Our network used to be called a little bit different. It used to be called SIN, S-I-N, which stood for Science Innovation Network. But since February this year, we have rebranded or relaunched the network to really reflect the weight that we see growing on technology in diplomacy and domestic missions as well. So nowadays we have about 130 specialists across 65 locations. Most of us are scientists or with a scientific background. Some are engineers. In really all kinds of fields, from life sciences to nuclear and social sciences, of course, and others. So all of these 130 more or less specialist science and technology officers, or different names depending on each country because of different size of organizations as well. We're all working to really forge, build, or maintain international partnerships. We also inform policy from a global perspective or global insight, and at least we try to enable collaboration that really supports growth, as in economic growth, but also resilience and security. So to try to convey all of this in a short time, I've structured my notes, my remarks in 6 main parts. So I will speak a little bit about the history and how we got here, so how the network really evolved. A little bit about what we actually do day by day, and why this really matters for the UK and the government. And I will try to show you some examples, recent practical examples in the world, but also in the Baltics, to give it more relevance, and in the new geopolitical context also how this matters. And also I think worth bringing to this room potential areas of collaboration that I see or work together as an international partner. And then at the very end, I gathered some practical lessons from our side that I hope can resonate beyond the UK practice. So many of the things that I will mention or references I will make are based on 2 frameworks that really shape the way we work at the Science and Technology Network. These 2 are a science diplomacy update that the Royal Society did together with the AAAS, so the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and the second one is the UK's CSA, the Chief Scientific Advisors model, which is the one that Lithuanians colleagues have visited this year. They have a model on how to embed evidence into policy as well. So I will refer most of my points from those 2, as a framework, so to say. And so if we look at a little bit about the history of science within UK international engagement, it started around 1940s with back then called science attachés that would work in embassies and only in a number of countries. The network as it is today, or at least the closest we have, dates back to the early 2000s, where the initial focus was mostly on bilateral science diplomacy and promoting research collaboration. So it was quite reduced in terms of focus and also in terms of numbers. But over time, what happened is that the portfolio has expanded, for example, into innovation policy, a lot of work into standards for technology, and of course, research security has been growing with time. So, as I mentioned, in February this year, we had a transition from the Science and Innovation Network to what we now call Science and Technology Network. And it was really to reflect this new mission that we have, to align foreign policy with domestic priorities, as I said, in growth, security, and resilience mainly, but also placing critical technologies at the center of international engagement. And when I say critical technologies, I mean AI, of course, quantum, semiconductors, engineering, biology, and future telecommunications, but also all of that underpinned with data. So this is the way that the UK government sees technologies that can be really used for international engagement both ways. So maybe two developments that are worth highlighting just now is that, as I mentioned, this Royal Society and the IIIS, they have argued that the original traditional triptych that we used to define science diplomacy by, which was science for diplomacy, diplomacy for science, and then science in or within diplomacy. So while they still find this useful, they believe that it doesn't longer capture the complexity of today's environment. So what they propose is actually a simpler framework, so a two-way frame, which really states how science shapes diplomacy and diplomacy shapes science, as I was saying in the beginning. So what really changes this is because it recognizes that non-state actors, as can be major technological firms, for example, are now influencing global norms, even as much as governments do. So emerging technologies, like the ones I mentioned, of course, bring a lot of opportunity for all of us, but also they do imply certain systematic risks. And that really demands a governance or governance system structure that is fast, that can keep up, that is inclusive, and, as Agnieszka mentioned, is trusted. So trust is a big part of all of this. So this new framing or simplified framing, which I'm trying to convey in just a few minutes, but it does recognize that openness must be balanced with the security, and that science diplomacy is really about delivery. So it's about building coalitions, it's about sharing data, but in a responsible way, and trying to mobilize innovation. And for our regions like us here in the Baltics, really the growth to be sustainable and smart does depend, as I said, on trust, but also on interoperability, which is something I will mention later. But so it is really a necessity that is practical. On top of that, there's also the implications that we have had towards Europe recently. So you might recall that the UK finalized its association with Horizon Europe in late 2023 and is now fully operational since February 2024, if I remember correctly. So this, of course, the UK was associated with Horizon Europe before, but after a long period of not being, for us, this is really a strategic reset. So not just a technical agreement, but it really restored the UK's researchers' ability to, for example, lead consortia, to really access flagship missions, to also participate in the shaping of the agendas on topics like climate, for example, health, and digital transformation, which is becoming more and more relevant. So because we see Horizon really as Europe's primary platform for problem solving and in a collaborative way, for regions like the Baltics, for example, this really offers a route to integrate cutting-edge science into our regional strategies, but also ensuring interoperability, as I was mentioning, and we do a lot of work on standards, for example, international standards, and Horizon is one of the ways that we do that, among other initiatives. So maybe just one last thing to mention about Horizon Europe that I deem relevant is that since April this year, the UK has also access to quantum and space domains, which took a longer time to get there. But for us, that is really significant now, because of course these are not niche areas. So both quantum and space, that's why they took a bit longer as well. But they do really underpin things like secure communications. Resilient energy grids in the Baltics is a hot topic, and but also other things like mobility for the future. And so for us, really being engaged on that really strengthens our collective capacity to compete globally, but also reinforcing these principles that the science in diplomacy or science diplomacy is about sharing capabilities, and it's definitely not a zero-sum game. So just that being said, we see Horizon Europe as a very, very good example of a practical enabler, where it funds research, but also builds the networks of trust that really make policy alignment and technology adoption possible across countries. So a little bit on what we do, on what we actually do on the day-by-day basis. So we are seen as the front line for science diplomacy, of course. And as I mentioned, working from embassies and high commissions, our role compared to others is really practical and outcome driven, which is actually quite good to be in such a role from my perspective. And the STM really serves three main objectives that you can find. I'll try to explain better, but they are promote, inform, and enable. So those are our main goals and objectives as a network. So what does promote, inform, and enable mean? So it is promote as in projecting UK science, but also technology, innovation. So the excellence and expertise and the leadership at a global scale. When it comes to inform, is mostly about providing our insights at post and also some intelligence back to the UK. And I would say probably the most important and also the most visible one is that we really put a lot of effort on actively building and facilitating science, tech, and innovation, really enabling this collaborations that at some point bring value to the UK, even if it's not direct value immediately. But so I did promise to put it in practical terms. So I would say that all of the work that we do beyond these three objectives can be outlined in 4 pillars. So the first one being policy informing. As I mentioned, when I say providing insights or informing to the UK, what we really do is that we are monitoring global science and tech trends across the globe, and we are also comparing regulatory approaches. So works like the ones Professor Jonas is working on, that really is the kind of things we're looking at in other countries. How are others doing this? How are others approaching this? And then bringing that insight into UK policy. So let's say an example would be that a country really pilots an AI assurance framework, for example, or biosecurity standards. So what we do is we try to learn from that, report it, what works, what doesn't work, and then the goal is that UK policymakers can really make informed choices based on that. The others are partnership building. I think not much is needed to be explained about that, but really just connecting people, connecting the ecosystem really is a key pillar for us, where we understand that it is through these partnerships that we can turn the commitments into actually projects that have measurable outcomes. The other two are diplomatic engagement, which again, sitting at an embassy might be quite straightforward, but we really see that science is taking a sit at the center of geopolitics, and we try to help shape this global governance on key issues. Just as an example, AI safety, research security, as I mentioned, but also things like really upcoming like quantum computing standards and the like. So this diplomatic engagement really helps us get there and understand and communicate with our partners. And lastly, what is innovation support? So we do understand that it's not really just about the academy and the academia and research doing the work, which is the basis, but then the next step is really taking that when it comes to technology, for example, and trying to help SMEs spin out, scale ups even, to access international markets, so that those research and development projects really take off at an international scale. So maybe, Vita, I see you there. How bad am I with time?
We are almost out of the conference time.
Right.
I hope that you can summarize very shortly because we still have a presenter.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'll very, very shortly maybe mention 2 or 3 examples of bilateral or regional engagement that we have had here in the Baltic. So one very good and recent example is about digital or e-government, right? So as I mentioned, I'm based in Estonia. Our team has been providing details, really a really detailed analysis of how Estonia's digital identity system, how Estonia's e-government works, trying to explain that as in architecture, governance, interoperability, etc., to a wide variety of UK policymakers. And that it is really nice to see that, for example, from last week, the UK's new digital IT program was announced, and that is not 100%, but it is heavily influenced by the insight that we have provided and lessons learned from Estonia, for example. So that is a very practical recent example. And since, if I answer correctly, we have guests from Korea, also following the Downing Street Accord, there was a mixed committee on science and technology where they prioritized collaboration in critical technologies, skills, research mobility. So also in other countries, this is really setting the tone or providing a platform for both economic security and standards leadership. And in the same sense, to mention Lithuania, we are about to host one of the biggest large-scale international science events in Lithuania in about 2 weeks. This is a joint effort, of course, with Lithuanian Research Council, the Tech Transfer Office, the Baltic Network, and really, Vilnius University, the MFA, etc. Really a huge number of people working very hard, and this will focus on tech transfer mostly. How do we take that research into the market and to international markets? And as I mentioned, sometimes big part of our work is seen as connecting people, not only telling what UK does. That's not the idea, is connecting and learning from each other. So we will have, of course, UK participants, but from all of the Baltics, Finland, Ukraine. So really sitting together in one room to leverage science, but also, from my perspective, building these trust networks across the players that we really need. So because of time, I'll wrap up with that. But I'm happy to share any other questions and answers that might come, and a lot of resources that I have as well.
Thank you so much, Cristofer. We see your email just in a case if some participants would like to give you some feedback or give some questions online. So thank you so much for your presentation. And as we see, UK's evidence-informed policy-making ecosystem is quite wide and very structured and very well developed. However, we are moving to the last but not the least presentation today. Iveta is very patient, professor from Latvian University. And Iveta is is having here I don't know how many times have you been in this university and supporting our conference, but Iveta is as a local already, speaking in Lithuanian as well. So, but we would like to hear more about Latvian ecosystem and its challenges and issues what you have in your beautiful country. So, Iveta, the floor is yours.
Dear colleagues, I will start with some classical joke from the academia. You know that we academics, we do love to speak in the format of 90 minutes. And it's very hard for us to get out of this format. So I try to get out. Even it's challenging, but nevertheless, in a way, I'm very happy that already has been said so much. So I should not repeat, and because Agnieszka did fantastic introduction about the initial ideas. I also work with a group of colleagues for some kind of methodologies, how we could measure evidence-informed policy making. Jan already presented part of the job done in the COREX. I'm also in the one of the COREX working groups, so working on another point. Therefore, I have actually privilege to focus just on Latvian case. And I would like to restructure all my story because let's put it in a straightforward way. Latvia is small, tiny country, tiny community. Alumni networks are the key points. There is a super pressure on any kind of individual, and even individual came to the position, still he can't jump out of these networks and etc. So to put it in a simple way, everyone knows everyone. And if you don't know everyone, then you know one person who knows that person. And this seriously shape the evidence-informed policy-making approach. Even there are emphasis on institutional capacity, considering that institutions are the ones who are growing their muscles, it's actually about the individuals, not the institutions. And in this case, what Latvia has done, considering that we are so small community, and we sometimes, actually all the time, we don't trust each other. So the problems with neighbors, with the neighbor behind the fence is the greatest ones. The statistics show that the highest number of complaints are about the neighbors on the other side of a fence. Therefore, to overcome some kind of cultural issues and to go forward with policy making and evidence-informed policy making, we have this collaborative network, or as we call, top portal, where you can follow all kind of legal pieces from the very beginning. You can read that very first green draft of the legal piece, along with the complaints, along with opinions, along with the official letters. So you can follow how the issue has grown up, has become snowball, or vice versa, how the issue simply died out. That's very good. That helps us to overcome suspicion that someone has lobbied, promoted, or did something else to get the issue done. Another point, of course, the government wants to develop state research program with some kind of commissioned research, but let's put again in straightforward way, Latvia is one of those who love new public management and some kind of radical approach. Therefore, all kind of research, all kind of evidence supply are based on the procurement, purely. And procurement sets the rules. Either the cheapest win, either there is a combination of the brightest minds. That means, and this I will explain just a bit later, that means that sometimes again that individual might be with a hat of the university or with a hat of some kind of consulting company. It took quite a long time, but finally there is a unified database of all kind of research done, of all these evidences accumulated. So in this database under the number 3, you can find approximately several thousand different kind of research, applied, fundamental, everything is here. Again, just to overcome this suspicion that something is doing something in favor. And the latest attempt was just few months ago, that there was an attempt to establish an analytic unit within the state chancellery to develop some kind of in-house consulting capacities, but so far it does not progress in a way as it was expected. There are many reasons, but seems it doesn't work. So, and here we come to the whole ecosystem. And as I've told, yes, policymakers would like to have some kind of in-house accumulated capacity, but the point is that, of course, in a small community, everyone goes everywhere. And this is quite often that the person goes to the private sector with all the information accumulated and then tries to also to be part of the procurement procedures. Individuals, they might be like researchers in university, but when it comes to the procurement of some kind of research within this liberal competition approaches, the same individual can take completely another hat and go on with that, with a consulting company, within NGO, within think tank. So it depends really for, I would say, constellation of stars at the moment, and etc. etc. Therefore, actually, there is another point behind those factors. As a small and tiny community, there is a quite strict sectoral divisions. So just imagine, I put something, but there is a lack of experts. How can you achieve evidence-informed policy if you have just 2 persons who understand something out of the nuclear power? That means even we try to go, that small community limits us, and we come up to the opinion-based approach, which is not happy, which doesn't make me happy, but that's the reality. Therefore, this effect of small community influenced the way how we look on the evidence. And of course, there is this technical approach to evidence that of course ministries also wants to keep evidence close to their agenda, to the technical issues. Therefore, there are requests for some kind of very, very specific experts. For example, recently, one of the ministry was looking for experts who has extensive experience in civic education and civic defense education programs. Even it's clear that those experts are extremely limited. It's just for example. However, when it comes to evidence and the governmental agenda, there is another point what we should keep in mind. This is perceptions. And of course, as academics, we do love to say we are living in constant perma-crisis and whatever and whatever. But hey, guys, look on the other point, the perception of crisis and the perceptions whether this is a crisis for politicians or policymakers or for advisors, and perceptions on that data differs a lot. I love the Norris example about the terrorists and fighters in one place and in another place. It's also a matter of the perceptions and how we then translate those perceptions in certain data. And then it comes, of course, some kind of standard operating procedures, because there are standard operating procedures as it works in academia. Sorry, guys, we don't have ready-made research on shelves just to take it out of the shelves, to clear the dust, and here it is. No, it doesn't work in a way, and we can't do anything if a serious research within like 6 weeks. It also doesn't work well. For the policymakers, this is the same. So, therefore, this picture seems to be simple, but this picture at the same time seems to be very complicated in a small country. And this explains that even we do capacity building, but the whole evidence-informed policy are seriously shaped by the small country approach. But at the same time, for our small country, we have something that academically I called also the loop of suspicious. That the more transparency we do have, the more suspicious we are about the data. So even if there will be 100 transparencies, still we could ask whether the evidence are clear, whether evidence are trustful, etc., etc. But at the same time, no one rejects the evidence needs. More, this system relies again on individuals in coordinating the evidence needs and coordinating the whole ecosystem. From time to time, of course, as a small society, we ask why we don't have the specially designated institution. We allow this also in a small society, but nevertheless, we again come back to the real experts who bring this on the shoulders. So, therefore, at the end, what we as a small society faces, time, it's not our friend, because for many of those research and issues, we have too less time as for politicians to make decisions, as for researchers to provide some kind of adjusted solutions. We still face problems with the skills. We have so many experts as we do have. We have our own culture, and we have also administrative barriers that sometimes this administrative and standard operating procedures, they does not fit together. These are two different planets. You know, there was a book about the man from the Mars and women from Venus or something. So it's the same works here, that policy making and evidence supply are two different planets. And then the key point are about either advisors, either academic experts, either politicians who are smart enough to understand the role of evidence and who are capable to bring in a policy. Therefore, we can't exclude informal relationships. I already talked about skills, and of course, even all data are supposed to be accessible. Sometimes it's so hard to get those data out of the institutions. I know this because I'm also active in my community council, and I'm fighting a lot and annoying a lot my local municipality with the data requests and etc. etc. So. But this doesn't work for sure in a wide communities, in a big countries. But for small country, we see this, and we are aware that as a small country, we can't develop capacities in all fields of the science. We should make some kind of strategic decisions and put strategic emphasis on this. That's how we do live in North, but believe me, we have very good friends in South Lithuania.
Thank you so much, Professor Iveta. It was amazing, and she made it so fast. For summarizing just one small sentence. From all the speeches, we understood one thing. Evidence is an inseparable part of policy making, and scientists, researchers might contribute to the decision making if policymakers will trust us and we as academicians will trust policymakers. So thank you for all presenters today, especially for those who are online, Professor Cristofer Rybner and Professor Jan Sachlin-Meyer, who are here with us. Unfortunately, we are not able to have a long questions and answer session, but Professor Jan, may I ask you as well as Cristofer Rybner, if there will be any questions sent to organizers, we will definitely keep in touch with all of you, trying to answer to any issue which is very relevant. I can see that it's a very early evening or late night at Korea. We have here Europe, we have 2 hours difference in UK, but we are all here gathered for this conference. So let us thank, first of all of you for joining here in person, for those who joined online. Let us thank for organizers, for the great team which worked perfectly to do this event, and of course, thanks to our partners who supported. Unfortunately, sometimes we have no platform for discussion with governmental officers, but it's great that in some events like scientific conference, we can gather together. Thank you, all of you, and have a wonderful day.